Hello and welcome to Global Eye. I'm Parikshit Luthara. The big global story we are tracking today. Niger President Mohamed Bazoum was detained by the Presidential Guard last week after a coup by the military group. In a televised address, Omar Chani, the Chief General of the Presidential Guard, declared himself as the head of the West African country. Hundreds took to the streets waving Russian flags, chanting, "Long live Putin and down with France." The coup in Niger is the latest military takeover in West Africa after Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea. France was a colonial power in West Africa till 1960. Even after independence, France has trade and military presence in the region, which have caused long-term tensions. What is the Russian connection? According to reports, the Niger military group has close links with Russia's Wagner mercenary boss Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has extensive interests in Africa. Russia is reportedly seen as a potent anti-colonial force seeking to free Africans from European and American oppression. So can Niger be the next flashpoint between Russia and the West? Let's go across to our guests right now. We are joined by Oluwole Ojewale, Coordinator for Central Africa for the Regional Organized Crime Observatory Division at ENACT, and RS Malhotra, former Indian Ambassador to Niger. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Ambassador Malhotra, first to you. Give us a sense of what's at stake for the West, France, European Union and the United States in Niger. This was a close ally of the West. If this coup is successful, what does the West stand to lose?
Yes, Niger has been at the forefront of fight against Islamist militancy in the Sahel region. In fact, out of the 5G Sahel countries, only Mauritania is out of the military coups. All the other four, Chad, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, they have suffered military coups during the last 3 years. Now, France launched Operation Barkhane against the Islamist militancy, but with the Mali asking France to leave, following failure, let us say, of this Barkhane force to make any major headway against the Islamist militancy in Mali, the Operation Barkhane has ended in tatters, and with military regimes taking over in Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and now Niger, I think this fight is going to suffer. The Wagner group is already there in Mali. Burkina Faso has not yet asked for Wagner group, but they are already having close collaboration with Russia. And my fear is that at this rate, Niger may go the way of Mali and Burkina Faso, and it would be a loss to the region if that happens.
All right. Let me also ask you about the growing influence of the Wagner Group. What are the direct linkages between Abdul Rahman Chini, who is the head of Niger's Presidential Guard, who's named himself the head of the transitional government, and Yevgeny Prigozhin of the Wagner Group? What do you think could be the possible linkages here, Ambassador Malhotra?
No, I don't think there is any direct link. There may be link between the civil society groups which are on the streets, and you say they are coming out with the Russian colors. And this, in fact, is spreading across the Sahel region. My feeling is that only Mali has some Wagner group instructors there. There is collaboration going on between Mali and Russian militaries. There is also cooperation between Burkina Faso and Russia, but I don't think that stage has come in Niger. They are maybe in other places like Sudan or in Central African Republic, but as far as Niger is concerned, I don't think Wagner Group is present there right now, but it is possible that the civil society groups which are on the streets there in Niamey, they may be having some linkage there.
All right, we have been seeing pro-coup protesters in Niger protesting outside the embassy outside the French embassy with Russian flags and also chanting slogans of "Long live Putin." Let me also go across to Mr. Ojewale at this point. Mr. Ojewale, when it comes to Niger and what's happening on the ground, we know that the President Mohammed Bazoum, is right now restrained to the presidential palace. Do you think this coup attempt can be tackled? Do you think he will be able to regain control of the country, or does it look very difficult at this stage?
Thank you so much for having me, Luthara. I think there are two options there. The first option is to see if there could be a quick diplomatic wing within the shortest time possible to negotiate for his return, which I think that is the overarching objective of ECOWAS and their Western alliances now. The second thing is that if the junta prolongs their stay in power for whatever justifiable reason, then ECOWAS might have to opt for the option of a transitional government within the next 12 to 18 months, possibly. And that would probably involve election taking place. The third option, which is a hard one, is that ECOWAS might deploy force. And if ECOWAS goes in that direction, it is an unpredictable, it's best, we can only imagine what is going to be the likely outcome. But if ECOWAS is able to prevail through the deployment of force and possibly displace the military, then they might be able to restore the democratic precedent within the shortest time possible. But we can only predict the beginning of war. Nobody can tell how it's going to end. America spent more than $2 trillion in Afghanistan, and we all saw how the democratic government that they put in place collapsed on a single day. So it raises a lot of questions. Right. Just today, the chairman of ECOWAS, the president of Nigeria, has sent a memo to the Senate to seek approval for ECOWAS to deploy military forces to Niger. So it's an unfolding event, but it presents different options in terms of how they can achieve democratic restoration in the country, like I highlighted.
Mr. Ojewale, I would like to ask you about the anti-French, anti-colonial sentiment there in Niger over the years, because this is what President Putin has been trying to cater to, trying to appease to over the past few years. Do you think this anti-French sentiment, anti-colonial sentiment, anti-West sentiment was building up? There was a strong section of the military, of the society, which was against Western policies, Western influence in Africa and also in Niger?
Well, I think we need to highlight the fact that the anti-French sentiment, it's a populism that is propagated by the military forces. And the whole idea is to be able to secure or legitimize their stay in power. Yes, there are indeed some misgivings in terms of the neo-colonial experience of some of the Francophone West African countries in terms of how they think their relationship with France over the year has been managed. But what we need to underscore is the fact that the military are now using these in Mali, Burkina Faso as a rhetoric, as a populism to be able to legitimize their stay in power. Those things definitely exist in some of those countries, but they are not justifiable reasons for anybody to take or subvert the democratic process. So I think like the pro-coup protesters that you see waving the flag of Russia, the whole idea is that some of these people are actually sponsored, no matter what name they call themselves. And the second thing is that as this continues, we also need to look at the hand of Russia in this. Wherever Russia goes in Africa, it achieves two objectives. One is to subvert and subvert democracy and enthrone authoritarianism. And the second thing is to lay hold of resources in those countries in the name of the Wagner machinery. So I think there is a lot of clash of ideas here, democratic ideas clashing with authoritarian idea. The Western establishment stands for one, while Russia stands for the other. And they are now using Africa, some of these countries that are vulnerable, as ground for proxy war of ideas, and even proxy war of military war. So I think that is what is going on, and they have leveraged this sentiment
Mr.
to be able to drive.
I'm going to come back to you. I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Ojewale. Very important region. Niger is a very important region. 5% of the global uranium comes from here. But let me also go across to Ambassador Malhotra, who served in Niger. Ambassador Malhotra, I'd like to ask you about what's at stake for India. We have been hosting the Africa Summit here in India. We have been maintaining very close linkages with African nations. India has been in the process of taking out Indian nationals from there. Give us a sense of the presence of the Indian government, Indian private sector, investments in the region.
Yeah, there is some small Indian community there in Niger. They are mostly located in the capital city of Niamey. And there are a few companies which have some kind of presence there in the hospitality sector or in the sector of tourism, and also in retail, maybe some automobile also. But it's not a kind of large scale presence there. And as far as India's relations with Niger are concerned, yes, India is the largest democracy in that sense. One can say that the coming of junta there is a kind of setback, but the overall relationship is not going to be damaged by that. I think as long as law and order holds there, our relationship will stay. And India will, of course, not directly, but in whatever way, will try to nudge that normalcy returns to Niger, and there is a slowly but surely movement towards civilian power taking over the regime of the country.
Right. Mr. Ojewale, if I were to ask you about what is the change in mood or change in sentiment on the ground in Africa, in Niger, that India needs to be wary of, cautious of in the years to come, if this coup is sending out any message, what would that be?
I think, like Ambassador said, I don't really see any concern for India, because as far as Africans are concerned, India is not meddling with the democracy or political power. I think majority of Indians that I've seen across here have come solely for business. And there is lesser interference in any way in terms of the political development across Africa with respect to India. They have a lot of flourishing businesses on the continent. The concerns for Africa is about the role of the West on the continent, the role of Russia on the continent, and the role of China on the continent. I think these are the three concerns of most Africans as far as foreign relations and international relations with different countries are concerned, who have entrenched interest in their political development on the continent.
Right. We've run out of time, but thank you very much, Mr. Ojewale and Ambassador Malhotra, for joining us on this program. Let's hope that peace prevails and the violence subsides in Niger. We're going to take a short break here on Global Eye, but coming up, luxury automaker and aero engineering major Rolls-Royce cashed in a huge order from Air India this year. It's the first one since 2005. A special interview with Simon Burr, Director of Engineering and Technology at Rolls-Royce. Stay tuned.